welcome to the Plenty of Positivity podcast. I am your host, Courtney Beck, and today we have Jack Dyer. Jack is the founder of Storytold. He also has over 14 years of experience helping CEOs and empowering them to lead with integrity. And he is a top 1% LinkedIn storyteller and strategic leader. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome Jack Dyer.
Thank you, Courtney. Honestly, I was thrilled when you reached out about this podcast. This will actually be my first speaking appearance.
This is so exciting. So you're debuting on Plenty of Positivity. Yay. That is fantastic, Jack. So great to hear. I have to let our listeners know. I met Jack literally through LinkedIn, and his posts are so incredibly insightful when it comes to branding, marketing, and of course, we're going to get into all of this with his business, but the importance of storytelling. I love your posts. Keep them coming, Jack.
Amazing, thank you. It's an underused skill, storytelling. You know, like I was fascinated by the difference as soon as I started actually applying it to my business. I saw the difference was like night and day. You know, it was like walking out of a dark room or into a dark room and turning on the light switch. So yeah,
That's so true. Like I said, and we'll certainly get into it, but I really do. I believe that there's so much power behind understanding one's story and how it could lead to inspiration in one's life to maybe go for things once they hear somebody else did it. But Jack, why don't we start with an introduction and a background of yourself?
Of course, yeah. Like, how far do you want to go back?
Let's start from the very beginning. What was Jack's childhood like?
Amazing question. I guess I'd always describe myself as a quiet, like down-to-earth, introverted kind of person. I never really went to that many parties. I was never the live for Friday night kind of teenager. And actually going back to being a kid, I had a small group of friends with very specific interests, and we would do our own thing that was often not what other people were doing. So it probably stemmed from living in the country, but I used to go out and build tree houses, you know, with either by myself or with my family or with these friends. Everyone else would be going off and drinking at age 13 and, being the classic teenagers that they were. But I was more happy staying in and either being indoors and playing with Lego, for example. Still to this day, I do have a bit of a Lego collection, but or just building stuff, creating stuff, designing, drawing, even scrapbooking. I used to be into football because my dad was he's a big football fan, but not so much as an adult really. I used to take cutouts of Manchester United in the UK, the football team, and be like, yep, this is a really cool goal this guy scored, and this is a cool newspaper article. And I didn't quite realise at the time why I was doing it. I just loved doing it. And I suppose really it wasn't even about the football. It was the creativity, the aspect of design. And I'm creating this whole sort of scrapbook. Could have been about anything, just so happened to be about football. But I was a very creative kid. And also this is very weird for me, by the way. I don't usually talk about myself. Being an introvert, it's out of my comfort zone, but I'm sort of trying to force myself to talk about myself since you asked. So,
Jack, you're doing absolutely fantastic from the very beginning. And what you're talking about, though, about like just childhood through your adolescence, I really do think that there's something to be said about standing in one's uniqueness, not being afraid to, just because other people are doing it, like you said, just like growing up, they're, doing certain social activities, but how you and your friends would kind of veer away from that. And that definitely, at least from my perspective, as you were speaking, talking about that creativity would certainly lead you to a mass amount of success throughout your career that obviously focuses a lot on creativity and marketing. And so before we get into all of your career, your story told, of course, your business, I would love to ask you just a very fun question, Jack. So, what is maybe the most interesting thing that you would like our listeners to know about Jack Dyer?
The most interesting thing. Um, I don't know if it's interesting, but and you wouldn't think it to look at me. Perhaps it's like it's not even that sunny here, but it seems very bright on the screen. You wouldn't think it to look at me being a nerdy sort of young guy, but I used to play steel drums when I was 18. The Jamaican instrument. So yeah, it's an absolutely amazing, Caribbean origin instrument that I had the opportunity. A few friends that I met at school, they. How do I sum up this? I moved house, got on a new bus to school, and it was only in doing so met a few guys, Mike, Jack, and Manning, who they're not even on LinkedIn, so they won't know that I'm calling them out. But the three of them, they said, "Oh yeah, we're going to Steel Drums this afternoon," and I was like, "What? What was that?" And they're like, "Well, since you're now our friend, do you want to come along?" And so I did. Instead of getting off at my stop, I continued on to their house, and obviously let my parents know they picked me up from somewhere else. But yeah, went to do steel drums, and it was incredible. I've now got a set of the tenor pans, which are like the sort of harmony ones that go just under the main tune. And yeah, I look very uncool. It's adding to my uncool repertoire of doing what no one else does, which is like a very nerdy teenager doing the steel drums and performing at lots of concerts across the UK. So
That is incredible, Jack. I had no idea about that. And when you were speaking, but what's really interesting is as you were speaking about how you got introduced to the steel drums, I think there's something to be said about spontaneity in life, of just trying new things. Like you said, I mean, your friends were going to do that and you just kind of tagged along. During the time when you were playing like the steel drums, what did you learn within the time spent with your friends that you were able to maybe carry forward and maybe just teach you more about life in general?
yeah, like as you say, trying new things. I didn't know if I saw a bunch of people like doing steel drums on stage. Part of me might think, "Oh, that's kind of cool. I wish I was up there," but then I would never actually go and action it. Nothing would compel me to then go and talk to them, especially because I'm an introvert. But the fact that these four very nerdy guys, they were the type of guys, and still are, who on a school bus had their massive laptops out. Like, bear in mind, teenagers back in the day didn't have laptops. They were the ultimate nerds to carry laptops around with them. Especially then to get them out on a school bus and play computer games all linked up to each other. And so I gravitated towards them because I like playing computer games, the old-fashioned ones, like anyone listening who knows Age of Empires. Yeah, absolute classic game, really, really good. But I guess I can't remember what your question was, but I guess it's like the idea of getting in touch with new things, and trying these things and discovering them, and then seeing if you want to actually pursue them. And that's kind of how I did my entire career, and it's really fulfilling. I've never followed the traditional path. I've never done what everyone else expected me to. It's not true. Sometimes I have. Sometimes I've been forced back onto the traditional path, but I guess we'll talk about that coming up, I suppose.
I have to agree with you about, I think there's something very special about trying new things and having the courage to try new things. Because going back into even when you were talking about like growing up, just being more introverted, I was definitely really shy growing up. But I wish if I could go back, I would have asked more questions to people and maybe perhaps tried new things. And so that is what I'm all about right now. And I think for you, your business, and I want to get into that about literally like trying new things. I was looking at your background, very extensive background, but recently you launched Storytold. And so I want to hear all about the journey from the very beginning of your career leading up to Storytold.
Okay. How much time have you got?
We got
So I
all the
think
time for you, Jack.
amazing. So yeah, I started doing, just like I say, early as a kid, being an entrepreneur. Um, I realise I haven't really touched on entrepreneurship, but it kind of does feed into it. I, as well as doing the things that other people weren't doing, like not following the crowd when I was a little kid, I did a very different thing in the sense that my parents had I was quite independent. My parents had an apple tree in their garden, and most kids would just look at that and go, "Oh, it's nature," and then stay inside and play on computers, because we don't appreciate what we've got around us outside until we're grown up, I guess. But yeah, and like especially nowadays with iPads, and that's a whole other conversation. But like as a kid, especially like I only had my dad's hand-me-down Nokia 3210, the classic, the unbreakable Nokia. But I didn't get that until I was 14. So between 0 and 14, there was a whole period where I was screenless, and it was lovely. I actually noticed other things, and one of them was this big apple tree outside. So I thought, well, why don't I just pick all the apples and take them into baskets and try and sell them down in the local village? So I did, and took them to the train station. There was a local sort of tourist train there called the Dean Forest Railway, if anyone wants to look it up. And it's a beautiful sort of train line that goes on for about 20 miles, and it's a tourist attraction, and you can ride the train back and forth. It's all right. But I actually took this little basket down to the station, tried to sell these apples for... I'll say for my American friends, it was about 20 cents per apple, or 6 apples for $1. And yeah, it was just, I thought, nowadays you can't buy anything that cheap. But as a kid, it was amazing because it wasn't even about the money. It was just this idea that I'm doing something. I'm creating this little income, this project for myself. And obviously I didn't take into account my parents, expenditure, their time, the fact that they would have had to look after the apple tree and grow it and everything. But I just picked their apples, and they even helped me, and I took them down and sold them. But again, being an entrepreneur, I kind of had that mindset from an early age. Using my love of Lego as well. I even started to make little Lego stop motion animation videos with the idea that eventually I could sell them and become an animator and something like that. But that never happened. But it's just that idea of being an entrepreneur. So yeah, I've always been doing things slightly differently, not radical. I've not reinvented the wheel or anything, and I wouldn't necessarily even say that the work I've done has had a huge impact until Storytold, that is. But yeah, throughout my entire career, I then, leaving school, I applied for a job as a developer. Even though I'm not a developer, I'm not development minded, I can't build websites, but I thought this company that I applied for was really cool. They were a creative agency who worked for Jaguar, Land Rover, Mercedes, BP, huge, multinational companies. And the agency that was contracted with them was just a small team of about 20 in a converted barn in the Forest of Dean. So I thought, that's really cool, huge big names and everything, but they're just in a little barn. I'll apply for a job. They only had one job open as development. Sent in my design CV and my little portfolio website I made. And they were like, well, we've actually filled the spot for a developer, but given that you're really not development material, do you want to come in for an interview as a designer? And I'm like, Yeah. Okay. Great. So they reorganized their structure internally. Created a job for me that wouldn't have been possible otherwise because they weren't advertising for this job. It was only because I, again, like you said earlier, tried something new, put myself out there, and found this reaction in the most unexpected way that they created this job for me. I then got mentored by the most wonderful woman who, when I was 19, she was about 27, 28, called Fritha, and she was then promoted to creative director as I was brought in to be who she was previously in the company. So, like, as she took a step up, I then took her role, and then it was kind of like a. I'm going to be nerdy right now. Like with Star Wars, there's always like a master and an apprentice. She became the master, and I became the apprentice. So yeah, that was kind of cool.
That is fantastic. I mean, just literally like the story from the very beginning of how you were introduced to entrepreneurship at a very young age, and it goes to show, like you were saying, like just the appreciation of, yes, you were selling those apples, but all the time, all the effort that it takes to grow the apple tree. And I think that's very admirable, because it does, I think at a very young age, it could teach you very valuable lessons, as of course you would come up to just present day, where you would launch Storytold. And then you also mentioned, I heard just the word mentorship. And I think mentorship is so important when you're starting something new, even when you're well seasoned, to always have somebody just to guide you, to ask questions to. Because I'm a firm believer, Jack, of just always learning, that just thought process of you never stop learning, no matter how high you climb. And so I'm just curious, like, as you would begin Storytold, even from that last job that you had mentioned, do you currently have a mentor that you reach out to? Maybe it's not even formal mentor, but do you have just a mentor in general?
Um, I don't have any specific mentors, but I'm, as you rightly said, like constantly learning. I'm constantly looking to refine things, and there's so many people online on LinkedIn that are doing incredible things, and I'm constantly looking at them and going, okay, what they've done works in a very specific way. I'm going to see how I can take what they're like trying to teach through their words, and without them actually teaching anyone, but trying to like adapt that for what we do. And I realised you asked about Storytold as well, and I'm so excited to talk about my company, but I've been talking about everything else up until this point. So, yeah.
I
What
was
was
just
your
going to
question
say,
about my company?
Jack, the floor is yours. We are now, we've already led up to Storytold. Now we want to hear how, just about Storytold and interesting facts, because you just launched it here in March, I believe. Is that correct?
It is, yes. It's been. I kind of created the idea back in September, and I've been working towards this point where it's become a real thing. But I guess I kind of need to backtrack a little bit and give you a little bit more context, but I'll try not to ramble. Um, the, the main thing, I guess, is that my after that first job, that was in 2010, effectively 2011. I no, not that it matters, but 2012. And I then was working there for 3 years. It was an amazing job. We had like a pool table in the office, we had a dartboard, we had a load of creative people, like a design team. Our team grew from just me and Fritha to a whole team of 4 designers. The development teams tripled in size. We then moved offices. And at that point, the company culture started to shift. So I then was headhunted and moved on. But in getting headhunted, that was a really cool experience. Again, that was on LinkedIn. Someone reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'd love to offer you like a kind of a nice jump in money to go along to this new company." This was an app company, so the guy was effectively creating an app that was aiming to be the next Facebook at the time. Um, of course, a few years go by, and sadly, the app is now shut down. But while I was there for 7 months or so, I discovered that everything I've been doing, for my really, ancient 4-year design career, which is not that long at all, really, like everything had been surface level. Everything was design, and it was kind of the tip of the iceberg. And design is wonderful. It's an incredible way to communicate. It's this entire medium, like we see with our eyes, but we feel with our hearts, and we connect with our hearts. And that's what I wanted to get into at that point. So I realised, and this does all lead up to Storytold, by the way, the big problem with what I was doing as a career designer was that I was just scratching the surface, literally the surface, because design is the very top level of what you see. But everything else, there's this whole field of industry called user experience, UX design, research. And that is if you imagine an iceberg, that is like the fundamental foundations of that iceberg, but design is just the tip of what you can actually see. So I delved into that and realized that the field that I thought was already pretty big, design, was actually like 5% of everything else I could learn. So I basically, as well as my day job, spent a couple of hours every night, every evening, every morning even. I bought Kindle ebooks, I bought all kinds of resources. I signed up to a million different blogs. I learned as much about UX as I possibly could. And within 7 months, I'd learned enough to then go and get a job as a UX designer. And that was in Cardiff, one of the most amazing cities. If you ever get the chance to come to Cardiff, definitely do, because it's beautiful. But yeah, after moving on to a job in UX design, I was at this fintech company for about a year doing UX design there. And I realised at that point, again, I'd jumped ship from 7 months and then a year, and I realised it wasn't the field of industry that I wanted to learn more about. It was going back to my roots. It was being that entrepreneur. It was finding that engagement, that joy, that passion that I had as a kid for doing stuff differently. So again, this is where it all comes together, because I created my own freelance company. It wasn't really a company; it was just me. But I was then a freelancer, and I created this name for myself called the UX Designer. And luckily, that didn't exist on the internet, so I got the nice domain name, the web address of the uxdesigner.co.uk. But then I was able to do this for other people. I did a consultancy UX role and worked with estate agents, worked with a tyre comparison website, of all things. Did lots of work here with other creative agencies as well. But then after COVID happened, obviously everyone, we're not going to get into a podcast without mentioning COVID. This huge thing struck the world, and everything became difficult for so many people. But I guess, being in the position I was in, I was quite fortunate. It was still a big shift though, because a lot of my clients were in the travel and tourism space at that point. I'd built up a really big repertoire of clients working with travel and tourism, and then all of a sudden they all cancelled their contracts. Almost overnight, I had no money coming in. That was a big shift, and I ended up having to get another job. So I then got a job with the most amazing company. I don't know if any of them are going to be listening, but my last job was at Interactive Schools, and they are the most wonderful company ever. If they are listening, and I kind of hope they are, then bye Interactive. But they're just so full of life and so happy and engaged, and everything they do for other people is just wonderful. They work with the world's best private schools all around the world, and they flew me out to do the photo shoots for these schools, the discovery days. So I would fly over to Boston, California, Washington, New York, again, all in America, fantastic places. And again, the top 20 schools in the world kind of thing. Some of them were on our list, and they became our clients. So there was some in Germany, some in the UK, and even one in Switzerland, which would have been beautiful, but the school itself, to get there from the airport, we had to take an underground train, which should just be illegal in Switzerland because you can't see any of the beauty. But yeah, I have. I basically, for the last 3 years, I've been traveling the world, doing photo shoots and focus groups and meetings for these incredible clients, and helping them to effectively tell their story without really telling it, but through the medium of design. Again, it's all been design based. So now we finally get to Storytold, where it sort of was heart wrenching to do it, but I handed in my resignation at Interactive Schools because they were just the most amazing company, as I say. And I think what's so special about them is that they know their purpose and they really live into it. They are true to themselves. They are authentic. And so that led me to be able to create this sense of authenticity about what I wanted in myself. And that was to go back to my roots, to be an entrepreneur again, and to form my own company, not just as Jack the freelancer now, but as the founder of Storytold. And we effectively, I'm not going to use this time to like promote my company because I guess this isn't the space for it. But also, that's not really me. I'm not a big sales promoting kind of person. But what I do believe in is being yourself and being authentic, and that's what I help others to do. Now, like Storytold is, we help companies to promote themselves in an authentic way on LinkedIn, with their website, with authentic storytelling. And we do it in a way that is natural to them. We've got this whole process we go through to discover who they are, and to help them communicate that in a more authentic way that resonates not just with them, but with their audience. Like if your company isn't getting any sales, the reason is because you're probably trying to use sales language. You're probably trying to be inauthentic to yourself. And as soon as you just start opening up, start being vulnerable, start sharing like problems and things that you faced and that you've overcome, start promoting others, stop being selfish, start like helping other people and providing value, that's when all of a sudden the world opens up to you and everything just becomes better. So that's what Storytold is all about. We're genuinely just trying to help others make a difference in their own industries, and in doing so, I personally get a lovely sense of like, wow, I'm actually helping other people, and it's really nice. And I've got a little team around me as well. I've got a designer, I've got a content writer, and a strategist. So we're currently a core team of 4, with 2 extra people who sort of help out now and then. But yeah, it's so exciting. And you can feel the energy on our team meetings as well. We're really engaged with what we do.
Jack, I am so happy for you because you could just tell, well, truthfully, you could tell the passion that you have behind it. And it's always so interesting the why people start something, if you know what I mean. And to hear your story, talk about authenticity, authentic self. The idea, I've been talking about this a lot, but this thought process of when you said when you became an entrepreneur at a very young age in your childhood, holding on to that childlike imagination, Jack. I think I've thought back to even myself, like, why do we lose that throughout our lives? And the only thing that I've come up with, and this is what I'm really curious, because when you really did launch Storytold, and maybe you had a certain level of vulnerability to obviously share why you started it, but was there ever a sense of nerves almost of like, oh yikes, what are people going to think about this? I'm just curious how you mustered up the confidence to really just to launch it.
I love that question. I kind of, if this was any other time in my past, I would have been super nervous and those nerves would have stopped me. But from September onwards, I realised this was what I wanted to do, but I didn't really know any form it was going to take. I just sort of thought, right, I want to start my own company. That's it. That's the goal. Obviously, huge goal, and very nervous about it at the time. That idea of like, will I ever get to do it? I don't know. But excuse me one moment. But it's this idea that I wasn't. As soon as I realised how I could help other people, the nerves disappeared. Genuinely, like that sounds so easy to say on this call right now, and looking back, it wasn't that simple. But yeah, they just sort of vanished, and I felt like I'd clicked into that state of this is now the right path to be on. Nothing else mattered, and everything became about creating this business. Because even though I was at the best company that I'd ever worked for, it wasn't my company. It wasn't my vision, my business, and it didn't. It didn't ignite that same spark of excitement in me that the idea of Storytold did. So, if anyone out there wants to start their own business and is listening to this, even though it's nerve-wracking at the start, even though it's a bit scary, the best possible advice I could give is to do what I did, which is I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what form it would take. But I just decided 100 days. I'm just going to give myself 100 days. And by the time that countdown reaches 0, I have to launch. That's it. No sort of getting out of it. I'm going to publicly say, right, 100-day countdown starts here. And I did. I waited a couple of days because I wanted it to line up with a special day that's resonant to me, so that the company would launch on March the 15th. But yeah, it's just that idea of just put something in place where it will be super embarrassing if you don't live up to it. Like give yourself give yourself this accountability. Like I made a public declaration every single day. I posted 100 days, 99 days, 98 days, all the way down to 3 days, 2 days, 1 day. And I had to do it. I had to make everything fall into place, and I did. So.
That is fantastic. I took so many words of wisdom, like the fact of, just to commit to 100-day countdown is something else, Jack. For example, even when you were, I don't know, say at like day 50 or day 30, were you at that point in line like, okay, yeah, I'm exactly where I wanted to be? Or were you at that point where, yeah, I may need to speed it up a little bit? Did nerves even kick in during that countdown, or was that already gone at that point?
The nerves were, it's really weird. The nerves sort of came along every now and then, like in bursts, usually at the 10 markers. So like 50, I was like, okay, that's halfway now. I feel like I'm really behind. I'm not nowhere near halfway ready. And then 40, 30, 20. At every point, I was like, okay, there's all this stuff I want to do. I've got such grand ideas. Me and my small team, which at the time was only 2 people. Since we've launched, it's become 4. But it was we bounced ideas off each other and wanted to launch this big sort of product, this big one. I might as well tell you now. In fact, we were going to do a 1,000-page PDF of helpful tips for people to get started with storytelling. That didn't happen, and the PDF itself is still in pause mode because everything else has taken over, and we've already got 4 clients, and I actually just signed one yesterday. So we've now got 5 clients on the books, and we're only a month old officially. So it's all been about actually delivering the work for the clients rather than doing all this cool stuff we want to do. But
Well, thank you so much for sharing that advice, because I'm sure there's so many people out there that want to start something, but at the same time, like what you see out there is always that finished product. And so that's why I love picking apart the journey and really getting to know the emotions that come with it, the excitement, the nerves that slowly calm down as you're, just about to launch it, because that this is for you. Like you've determined, wow, this really is my passion, and I'm excited to wake up every single day. I feel that's when you just know, because there's no doubt when I have started things, you're right. Self-doubt may creep in, but then at the same time, there's also this level of excitement that kind of takes over everything. And you're right. It just kind of calms your nerves of like, yeah, I'm going full force on this. This is exactly what I want to do. What lessons within even just that short period of time have you learned with starting Storytold?
I've learned that nothing will go to plan. nothing you think will happen will actually happen. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. The bad thing is that if you have all these great plans and they don't happen, you can beat yourself up. And kind of, even if they're due to external factors that aren't anything to do with you, you feel like, oh, I should have done that. I should have done more. I should have been all on it, on top of it. But the good thing is that when you think of all the worries that could go wrong, all of the anxieties that could happen, what if I quit my job and all of a sudden we have no income and then I've got a house to pay for and I can't afford the bills? This is a huge gamble and a huge leap, and I'm not some trust fund baby. I'm not sitting on like a load of like riches that I can just dig into. We've built everything up from scratch, and quite honestly, I kind of love that way to be, because it is so much more impactful. I wouldn't want to have everything handed to me on a silver plate, because then I wouldn't appreciate it. So the flip side is, though, those are the worries, those are the anxieties that could creep in. Like, what if it all goes wrong? Then, I'll just have to get another job. I'll just have to go back to doing what society expects. And ultimately, that's kind of the worst case scenario. If it does all go wrong, it's kind of nice to know that, yes, we still have a roof over our heads. Like, we are fortunately, very, very fortunate with everything that's going on at the moment, to be in a fairly stable country. But yeah, like there's a lot of good that we can look at, even amongst all the other sort of worries.
Well, Jack, what you were saying, I feel like so many people could resonate with, because there's so many times that I have even found myself saying, what happens if this goes wrong? Or what happens if this doesn't work? But I can't remember who it was, but it was actually recently. Somebody told me, like, but what happens if it goes right? And you think about, I mean, right? It's like not to be cliche here on Plenty of Positivity, but legitimately, it's so true. But before the call, you and I were talking, like, your business is thriving, Jack. You're constantly busy. This is so exciting. But what are you now excited about at this point of your life? Like, anything in particular? It can be career related or just in life.
That's a lovely question. What am I excited about? I think every part of my effort, my like energy that I have every day is based around Storytolds and what we're doing, and the ability to meet new clients and help. Like, it's going to sound so cliche, and I don't want it to, but it's kind of true. The ability to just do what we do, because we've kind of, even though we're new, we've kind of already proven that we've got a good success record, and it's just replicating that success for other people. What I'm excited about in general, though, with Storytold, is the fact that I can build a team who all are integrated with Storytold and believe what we believe and what I believe, and I can share that belief with them and that passion with them, because it's so fulfilling. Once you, like, when you it could just be me, because I've gone from being a shy, introverted kid to now this adult who's on a podcast talking to Courtney. But like, and I'm super happy to be doing that. But like, this is again my first time actually putting myself out there, rather than just hiding behind, like, not hiding, but like, I'm used to being the quiet one who's typing away, like headphones on, heads down, typing away, making this awesome stuff, rather than actually speaking about it. So I'm most excited about now telling Storytold's story, telling my story, like evolving that, and in doing so, inspiring others to take up the mantle of storytelling as well, and to, like, whether they work with us or not, if they don't, that's okay. But I'm genuinely so excited to have that little spark of passion, to ignite that in people and go, yeah, I've got a brilliant story to tell. I really want to tell it, and it would mean the world to me if people do that with Storytold. But at the same time, as long as they're doing it, that's what's important, because that's where they can really stand out.
Well, Jack, I mean, that's just such an inspirational story for so many people to listen to right now is just like you said, being more of an introvert and putting yourself out there. Really from the very beginning, our podcast episode, I feel like it's just the theme of it is just trying new things. But putting yourself out there and not being afraid. Like I could certainly attest to the fact, like when you do start something and people see that you have a certain level of passion behind it, there's so many individuals that are willing to help along the way, to help guide you, to support you in any way. And I think that's such an inspiration in itself, Jack, to literally just tell that story of how you grew up, what type of personality traits that you have, but how you push yourself out to really start talking about the passion that you have for Storytold. And I could even tell on LinkedIn, and this goes to the very point of being kind of more so in person. I know we're a little bit virtual still, but that idea of really getting to know somebody than behind the keyboard, so to speak. Because when you and I first spoke on our very first like Zoom session, you have an incredibly like witty sense of humor. I appreciate humor, Jack. And I see that in your post. And that's what draws my attention is that I can not only be learning, like I said, even from the beginning about branding, marketing, storytelling, but that there's some humor behind it where I have a little chuckle as I'm learning, reading your post. And so I think that's very special, but very unique. But otherwise, like I said, if you were not your authentic self, we would not be able to see that. And I would not be, like you said, just learning and laughing at the same time. But it speaks a lot about really putting yourself out there and just not being afraid, because when you're passionate about something, it really shines through. And that's certainly what I see with you and Storytold. So could you explain something that really caught my attention when you were just in this past question? Working with a team, you had mentioned it, but sharing that passion, that drive for what you had begun, but now you have a team behind you. What have you learned about teamwork in the workplace, so to speak?
It's interesting because previously I've always been one of the team on the same level as them. So like as a sort of senior designer, I'm still a designer in a team of midweights and juniors. And ultimately we're all doing the same work. We're all answering to the boss and we're all answering to the creative director. And there's that sense of like fellowship, I guess, like camaraderie and all that stuff. But then having now stepped into a leadership role and being that leader on LinkedIn and for like for other companies for their strategy and all their storytelling stuff, it changes the dynamic because now all of a sudden I'm not just part of the team, but I've created the team. The team has like sort of gravitated around me, and I don't want to lose that. That old-fashioned separation that the boss has to be like someone who's above the team. That's not me. I'm not that person, and I never want to be. Like, if a day comes when I'm ever shutting myself away from my team and isolating myself because I'm just in too much stress or whatever, I would want them to bash down the door, drag me out kicking and screaming, and get me to get involved again. I want that to happen, and I feel like the little team we've got together, again, there's like 4 of us, a core group on WhatsApp, and 2 again are sort of silent partners. But we don't like. I don't see myself as the boss, and they certainly don't. Yes, and that's lovely because they take the mick out of me, I take the mick out of them back, and it's just like a really nice, friendly environment. And at the same time, though, my junior designer is fresh out of university, and there's a really lovely parallel because do you remember earlier I mentioned when I got my first design job, the creative director mentored me and led me up and helped me grow. I'm now in an amazing position to be able to do that with my designer. So it's come full circle, and that's another thing that really excites me, the idea that I can help this design grow, and it's lovely.
I was just going to say, but you had taken the words out of my mouth. That is such a full circle moment, Jack. I mean, that really is. It's like a testament to how far you have come. You now, you own the company and you're helping mentor. Now you're in like the driver's seat, so to speak, being able, to look back and to help and to guide. I think that's really special. So my last question is, Jack, I want to give you a big congratulations on the fact that you are a top 1% LinkedIn storyteller and strategic leader. Can you please explain how that came to be and what that means to you?
Of course, yeah. It's kind of an amazing thing. Like, it was all based on statistics, and ironically, statistics aren't necessarily as important as stories. But there's some statistics that just sort of grab people, as you said. It's that like that top 1% thing. Of all the people on LinkedIn, hardly anyone ever posts anything. Like most people, in fact, I think it's something like 60. These statistics are going to be really wrong, by the way. So just take them with a pinch of salt. But 60% or something never post anything on LinkedIn; they just consume. And then like the next 10% or something post something without pictures, and they don't really try. They just chuck stuff up, and then they consume. Um, then there's like the small majority. I think about 5 to 10% of people who post like 2 or 3 times a week, maybe, and they've obviously got other things going on in their lives, but they don't actively like learn about anything. They just chuck stuff up, and that's it. And then there's even fewer people, like probably 3 or 4%, who post every single day. And a lot of them don't do it in a consistent way. A lot of them do it just randomly. They do it for the algorithm. They do it on Tuesday at 10 a.m. because that's when the algorithm tells them to. Um, the top 1% aspect is really a vital thing for me because it's harnessing every aspect of authenticity and like getting ahead of the game and forcing myself to do that and to maintain that statistic by posting every day, like every single day, like clockwork. In the morning, I post, but it's engaging stuff. It's not just post for the algorithm. It's not just posts for the sake of posting or to get. It's not even for me. It's not to bring attention to me as a person. Again, introvert, but like it's this idea that I can share something of value every single day for people. And every day I see that reflected back. Like the comments are so wonderful. I've actually helped people just by being committed to this. And that is so rewarding. Yeah, that's worth doing, is putting as much value out there as you possibly can. If, again, I'm not in a position, maybe I am in a position now to give advice, I don't know. But if I can give advice, it's give as much value as you can without expecting anything back. Just give, give, give. And that's the key to just growing an audience and to being successful, I guess.
I just love that. And I have to say a couple things. I mean, really what you have accomplished in such a short period of time is truly, it's remarkable, but it's so incredibly inspiring. Like I said, whether it's the LinkedIn platform, whether it's literally starting a business, I mean, that's huge, Jack. But alongside of that, it's one thing to just start a business, but it's another thing to have as much passion behind it that you do. And that's what really determines like success, I feel like in life, is when you are so incredibly passionate. It's like hours go by and you don't even think twice about it. You're like, how is it already 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Like,
Yeah.
but no, that's like, I mean, it's something to be said. And that really does genuinely come out when you do post because, I've spoke about it, but there is definitely a recognizable sense of authenticity that come through your post. And now we get to see Jack live for the very first time on this podcast. I'm so excited to release this podcast, Jack. So let's go ahead. Let's round it out with either a positive quote or perhaps a positive phrase that you would like to share with our community.
Okay. This is like this is one quote that is it kind of sums up my character. It's both unique, it's nerdy, um, deeply nerdy. Like only a few people will listen to this and go, I know what that is, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's I'm actually quite embarrassed to say it. The quote is, "Take my love, take my land, take me where I cannot stand. I don't care, I'm still free. You can't take the sky from me."
Now that is powerful. How does that resonate to your life in particular? I know you said the personality traits, but why does that resonate so much to you in your life?
Ever since I was a kid, I've always wanted to embrace this idea of freedom, and it means different things to different people. But to me, the quote is I should give some context. It's from my favourite TV show called Firefly, and it was a show that again did things differently. Back in 2002, when I was 10 years old, it was a 14 episode TV show on Fox. That Fox has a history of cancelling shows. But yeah, it got cancelled way too early. Spawned this huge global following. Millions and millions of people tuned in and wanted to see this niche little TV show. It was a space western. Now, we've had space sort of sci-fi shows, we've had western shows, but this was the first one that was a space western, and it was a bit ahead of its time. But it's the whole premise of the show is this spaceship, this crew, and they're fighting around, doing odd jobs. They are creating their own path in the universe. They are picking apples, to sell at the local train station. They're doing things differently, and nothing that they do is linear. They never follow the path. They never go down the same roads that other people have gone down. In fact, they actively try to avoid them. It was a show that spoke to me and my personality, and the fact that they also do so many things to help others. They have real good value system as well. So at one point, again, I hope there's no copyright claims on this video, but at some point they accidentally, in order to survive, they have to do odd jobs for people, they steal some crates of things and deliver them to someone else for payment. And it turns out the crates that they stole contained medicine. As soon as they realised that they'd stolen medicine that was meant to heal sick people, they gave it all back. They didn't even hesitate. There was no question. They were just like, we're not going to be able to feed ourselves, but it's okay because these people need the medicine and we're not stealing from sick people. And it's like that incredible idea that they had this choice. They are literally fighting for survival, but they weren't going to compromise their values. They weren't going to lose that integrity, and they were staying true to who they were because of that. And everything about that show is just, it's so impactful for life, and it taught me so many good values, but also I had those values anyway because my parents are just the most lovely parents. But that quote, I'll say it again: "Take my love, take my land, take me where I cannot stand. I don't care, I'm still free. You can't take the sky from me." That quote is a testament to the idea that the sky is the limit. You can literally go anywhere, you can do anything. If everything else is stripped away from you and you lose everything, that's okay, because you've still got so many opportunities ahead of you. No matter how bad things in life get, you've got this future that you can look towards, and you can look up to the stars and you can dream and you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. And with that in mind, I'm going to take my hoodie off and show you this top. I don't know if you can see it.
You can't take the sky from me. Oh, Jack. You saved it till the end.
I did.
This has been, it's such an uplifting, inspirational podcast. And I just want to say, you are starting something. You could tell the passion behind it. I know it's going to be successful. It already has been, as we had spoke right before the podcast. So I wish you all the very best, Jack.